Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. People, I finally decided to be a bit more interactive on social media. Now, if you're not following me on Twitter, hell, I'm approaching 5,000 subscribers. I don't see why I don't have at least 25 subscribers on Twitter. If you guys want to see just what I have to say and see some of the interactions between myself and some very important people and just some other, Twitter users when it comes to boxing and also sports and also just some fun posts that are made throughout the day. But I finally decided to reach out to an interesting personality, the guy Rick Glaser. Now, I've heard people say all kind of negative stuff about him. I've heard people say positive stuff about him. I personally don't have an opinion on anyone because I don't get emotionally involved when it comes to people and fighters, really on a personal level. I just like boxing and I enjoy having the conversations. And although I may not agree with some things, if I can understand a point you're trying to make, we're good. You know what I'm saying? I think the ultimate is to be able to get someone to understand and agree with you. But at the bare minimum, they should be able to at least be able to say, well, I hear you. However, I just see it this way. So as long as you can kind of, birth an understanding, I think that shows some progress in the right direction when it comes to communicating. But that being said, I really feel that myself, Hood Champion, is getting a step closer to solving the case of why PBC fighters don't fight in Saudi. Now, check this out. Let me do something real quick, right? Because I didn't want that to be on there, but I'm gonna update it while we talk. Where is that? Right here. Let's see if it updates now. It's this one. Okay, see? Updated that right there. Now, I'm going to show you. I was on Twitter yesterday, and I was reading through a post that got my attention. It was from Rick Glaser. And he goes on to say here that with PBC losing Showtime at the end of the year, where's the financing coming from for fights like Crawford Spence, the rematch, which no one needs to see again. And now Wilder is talking about fighting Ngannou. He says, even if Al Haymon lands an Amazon deal, there's no money. Or, let me expand this for you. Okay, there's no money or guarantees from Amazon. It's only a pay-per-view distribution deal. These big fights require guarantees and will need big financing. It's a huge question mark now for PBC. Now I'm going to tell you, I've asked the question before, like, hey, who's Rick Glaser? And, there were a lot of people who came out and said, oh, he's a racist, he hates Al Haymon, don't listen to nothing he says, blah, blah, blah. Then I've had people come out here and say that he's a brilliant man, he's been around the sport of boxing for years, and he makes a lot of good points. So that's why I started to kind of pay attention to some of the posts that he puts out. But this one got my attention, right? So, because everything he's saying in here, where he talks about where's the financing coming from for the fights. We all know financing has been an issue for Crawford and Spence. They didn't want to give the guarantees. Crawford wanted a guarantee, right? Then Crawford said he had, somebody, a hedge fund, willing to put up guarantees of $25 million apiece for him and Spence, whether the fight did good pay-per-view wise or not. They didn't care. And we know that was an issue for those guys. Then somehow, a little bit of time passes, all of a sudden, Spence and Crawford are getting 8-figure guarantees, and the fight's happening. So now you look at what everything's going on with PBC and Showtime, and the fact that Crawford and Spence is supposed to be a rematch. I think what he's saying here, I think the question he's asking is very fair. That's kind of what we've been talking about here on the channel. What's up with the money? What's up with the rematch? Now, a lot of people feel they don't need to see it again. I will watch it, but I think we all believe Crawford's going to, he's just a more elite. We believe Spencer's elite, Crawford's more elite, okay? And then the thing about Wilder's a huge talking point right now. What's he going to do next? He's not fighting. He's begging for fights. Now they're talking about fighting Ngannou. But, you know, the thing is answering the why when it comes to PBC and fighters not fighting and, you know, the who, what, where, and how going into next year. And there's some things pointed out here. So he talks about even if they land an Amazon deal, there's no money or guarantees from Amazon. It's only a pay-per-view distribution deal. Now, I don't know how this piece is going to work, but I would think that the guarantees, because I mentioned something before. Now remember, I don't know. I'm just having a conversation. The guarantees may not matter anymore because if it's a pay-per-view distribution deal and they no longer have Showtime taking 45% of the pay-per-view revenues, that means there should be a lot more on the table for them to give a fighter. Remember, it's 10% went to the distributor, and then 45% went to the network, and then another 45% went to the fighter and his team. But now, if you with Showtime out the picture, that 45% they were taking, that's there. So I'm not quite sure how that would work, but I would think that 45%, at least a large portion of that, may go back to PBC and to the fighter, and then a piece of that 45% could go to Amazon, which means that there'd be more money there for the fighter, which could nullify this whole issue about a guarantee. But then it puts the fighter at risk of his or her event not doing well and them not getting paid the kind of money that maybe they were hoping. All right? So then he says the big fights require guarantees. I think that's just how they've been conditioned. I don't know if how many fighters going forward with the change of times are going to sit there and not understand, like, hey, we're not going to continue doing business the old way. This is the new way going forward. You're either with us or we got to let you go. And I think guys with nowhere to go, especially if no other platform is giving out guarantees, they just kind of have to accept the situation and figure out the Jake Paul remedy and find a way to grow their platforms and profiles so that they can have a larger audience and fan base, which means bigger pay-per-view numbers when it comes to sales. And he says it's a huge question mark, and I agree. So I went down and I decided to post something, and he and I actually started going back and forth. This guy here says, you know, Haymon still has significant guaranteed buyouts from funds from the show deal for 2024. I don't know nothing about that. Glacier says he was supposed to, but the ratings were so bad, Showtime used that as the escape clause. So there's no buyout. Okay? And then this guy goes, yeah, who's covering the Canelo's GTs? I don't know what the hell that means. And, guarantees. And then Glacier goes, Showtime is on the hook for Canelo's guarantees, and that's contractual. Okay, so Showtime has to pay Canelo. Where is the one that I put on here? Hold on. Because I jumped in here. Let me show you what I put on here, right? Okay. So right here. I went and I asked him, right, with what he posted. He says, right here, right? This guy put, PBC may have to go to Saudi Arabia. He says they have already been offered Haymon's shenanigans. The Saudis passed. Well, you know, once I saw that comment about the Saudis, you know, my ears perked up. So then I say, how do you know that to be fact? Right? because I want to know if the Saudis pass. We've been talking about that. Why in the world? Why aren't PBC fighters fighting in Saudi? Well, he says that the Saudis were offered, but they didn't want to deal with Haymon. And he says he does business there. And then I say, Rick, I've been trying to figure this out for a while. I can never understand why PBC fighters weren't receiving opportunities in Saudi to fight. I wondered why the Saudis passed on Al Haymon's stable. Actually, maybe it has everything to do with Al, not the fighters. And he goes, you aren't following, shaking my head. I think what he meant there is like I'm not following him on Twitter. And he goes, absolutely, it's Haymon. So I go, tracking. However, I don't understand the why. Why not work with Al Haymon? I hear all kinds of unsubstantiated reasons from bandwagonists. It would be nice if I could learn about the why. This whole Saudi and boxing really interests me, which if you follow the channel, you know I'm always talking about Saudi. And been doing it for a long time. I've been talking about this longer than anybody else. Nobody else was talking about this. But I'm trying to peel the layers back to get some answers. And then he goes, Haymon went through $900 million of Waddle Reed's money, and 11 TV networks have got rid of him. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, I heard something about a damn near $1 billion lost, right? Al Haymon, something about $1 billion, hedge funds, lawsuits. So I heard something about that. But this thing about 11 TV networks have got rid of him and his brand PBC. See, I don't know anything about that. So I even asked the question one time in a video I did, why hasn't anyone sued this guy Rick Glacier if he's not telling the truth? And nobody had an answer. So when he says 11 TV networks have got rid of him, I need to look that up and to figure out what 11 TV networks, because that sounds like some pretty definitive information. He didn't use round numbers. If a person used round numbers, you can probably assume they're making up shit. When a person like odd numbers, 3, 7, 9, 11, then those numbers are probably accurate, right? Now, what I'm telling you is a fact. When you're dealing with people and they're giving you even numbers, more than likely it's bullshit. But when they're giving you odd numbers, it's probably true. And he says, if telling those facts aren't good enough to make Haymon an outcast, what will? So I said, that's good medicine. Not one person I've spoken to could articulate what you just stated. That being said, I wonder what happens to his fighters. They seem to be innocent bystanders. And he says, how about a follow? It's free, informative, and painless. And I said, done. Thanks for replying. I truly appreciate it. Now, what I'm going to go back at and try to find out is this piece here. The $900 million of Waddle Reed's money and 11 TV networks have got rid of him and his brand. Now, if that's true, right? And I'm not just talking, I'm eating gummies, so, happy Halloween, belated Halloween, because, I love them damn gummies. Let me tell you something. If there's truth to that, 11 TV networks got rid of him, and the Saudis chose not to deal with him, my thing is the why. The why. There's got to be more to it. Because in business, right, people don't have to like you if, when you're looking at things bigger picture-wise, there's so much money on the table, they'll make an exception and deal with you, right? Because it's business. It's just like when I was in the military. They had a saying, right? Because I used to work with a guy, and he was toxic, man. I used to sit down and talk with him, and he used to talk so much crap about people and their wives, their kids, about everything about them, right? And I used to sit there and listen to him. Couldn't believe how horribly he spoke about people. And then we'd be at a gala, some kind of function, and he'd be sitting right there next to him, eating steak and potatoes, making toast, laughing with him, rubbing shoulders. And I'm sitting there, suited and booted, and I'm looking at him dead in his face like, how in the world can you do that? So we'd be at work, and I would ask him, I'm like, let me ask you a question. You say all this stuff about this guy, about his wife, his kids, everything. How in the world can you sit there at a gala, at a dinner, right, and be smiling in his face and whole humming and chilling with this guy? I was like, I can't do that. If I don't like you, I don't like you. I just can't do that. And you know what he would tell me? He would call me by my last name. He's like, you know what? Let's say my last name was Bling Bling. He'd say, you know what, Bling Bling? He was like, it's not about the person, it's about their position. You gotta respect the position. And I would be like, yo, I hear you, but I don't agree with that. I was like, it's one thing if you and this person just don't see eye to eye. I said, but you talk about him, his wife, and his kids. And he would say, you know what, Bling Bling? You just don't understand. As you get a little bit more experience or here dealing at this level of leadership and understanding that sometimes you may need something from someone, he was like, you'll learn not to burn bridges. I was like, but that's crazy to me. You talk about this man's wife and kids. And he was like, again, it's not about the individual, it's about the position. You got to respect the position. He's like, I personally think the guy's a piece of shit. He's like, but I respect the position. So when I'm out at these events or if I have to do things, he's like, I'm going to show respect to his position. It's not to him. Although to you, it may seem that way. I like, yeah, that shit seems fake to me. And here I am, been retired for 4 years, and that shit's still fake to me, okay? But it goes back to what I was saying, where you may not want to really deal with the person, but when you look at the business and not burning bridges, things still have to happen. But I've learned that now, don't get me wrong, and I understand it, and I can do it. But I mean, I would never, if I got to talk about your kids and your wife, I ain't messing with you. Life or death situation, I'm there, okay? But just to be around you like I like you, I can't do it. But I'm not gonna let nothing bad happen to anybody. That ain't me. So same thing here with this Al Haymon, Saudi, this whole situation. At least there should be some respect for the positions and nobody wanting to burn bridges because, okay, they don't like Al Haymon. But the position of PBC and his stable of fighters, with Saudi looking to grow boxing in the region, I mean, what better stable of fighters to have fighting in Saudi than Al Haymon's stable of fighters? He has probably the biggest names in the sport. Not one name, two names. I mean, collectively. But if you ask some people, it's the man holding a brother down. I don't have an opinion on that. But my question is, why? It's got to be more than just $900 million of some money that was maybe effed off. Got to be a little bit more than shenanigans, TV networks turning him down or kicking him, whatever happened, right? There's so much more to this. So now that I think I'm moving in the right direction, time to peel the layers back so we can get a peek behind the tent flap. But I need to do it before the secret society finds out about me. Matter of fact, I think I'm about to end this video. Y'all keep cool. Shout out to the veterans. And also, hey, secret society, I don't mean no harm, man. I'm just having a conversation. Don't run up on the old Sarge, man. I don't want any problems, all right? Y'all keep cool. More to come. We're going to crack this case wide open. I'm in the breeze.